I Am Alive began pre-production in 2005 at Darkworks Studios. Darkworks were responsible for two games that I enjoyed: Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, and the Resident Evil 4 clone, Cold Fear.
Now, one man must discover what went wrong.
What's going on here, Colonel?
A terrible mistake.
But what he finds is worse than he ever imagined.
My God.
The team stopped working when creative differences arose between the team and their publisher, Ubisoft. Ubisoft Shanghai took what remained of I Am Alive and redeveloped it to its current form. During E3 2008, a conceptual trailer of I Am Alive was debuted. In the trailer, a man named Adam is being pursued for his precious cargo, a bottle of water.
Hey! Gotcha!
Come on, Adam. You know what we want.
You don't stand a chance. Come on! Water!
Water!
This early trailer suggested that the initial gameplay would have revolved around collecting resources and tricking your enemy into traps. While in the final game, most of your tricks involve pointing a gun, there isn't an option to bargain or throw supplies on the ground. The 2008 trailer would have placed the setting of I Am Alive to a week after the destructive event, instead of a full year afterward. The game went silent again for another 2 years until a second trailer emerged focusing on the earthquake-destroying Chicago. Survivors can be seen in this trailer fighting each other with makeshift weaponry. The trailers for this game generated a lot of buzz and had me excited to see the final product. Unfortunately, this game was constantly delayed until I and the rest of the world had forgotten about its existence. Instead of getting a physical release, it was distributed on Xbox Live Arcade on March 7th, 2012, and later PSN and PC. Only a couple weeks later, another game with eerily similar gameplay was also released, but more on that later. If I had to compare I Am Alive to other games, I'd say it's a bare bones Assassin's Creed meets Disaster Report. This game suffers from an identity crisis. I have no hesitation stating that I Am Alive indirectly rips off other games. Intentionally or not, there's just too many coincidences to ignore. Take, for instance, the opening theme of I Am Alive. Give it a listen. I think I've heard this one before. The game begins a year after a major earthquake in the fictional city of Haventon. It opens with a mysterious person picking up a camcorder and watching the video diary of a man. In I Am Alive, you play as a nameless male protagonist, who I'm gonna graciously call Adam because that was his name in the 2008 trailer. Adam's design is also very strangely familiar. Adam was on a business trip on the other side of America before the event happened. We're left to assume that it took him an entire year to make it back to Haventon on foot. His mission is to reunite with his estranged family, his wife, Julie, and his daughter, Mary? I have to admit, the opening of the game gripped me. It didn't start with a bang, but with a slow walk into a foggy town. Adam has 2 gauges you need to worry about, a health bar in red and a stamina gauge represented by white. When you run, jump, climb, or enter dusty areas, your stamina depletes. You can recover stamina by standing on a solid platform or by eating. There's also an option to plant a bungee stake in the wall you're climbing to build up your stamina too. If you run out of stamina while climbing, you can tap R1 to grip for your life, but doing so will deplete the max capacity of your stamina, so be careful. The climbing mechanics were ripped directly from Assassin's Creed. There's no getting around it, but they're even clunkier. The game world doesn't encourage free roaming parkour like Assassin's Creed because of the stamina system. Why risk your stamina climbing a tall pole in hopes of finding a hidden area, only to end up with a water bottle that restores your now wasted stamina? There aren't any vantage points to seek out like in Assassin's Creed. There are some great climbing segments contained within I Am Alive that give the world a vaster scale, but you'll grow tired of it quickly, much like the protagonist. Most of the gameplay is spent looking for a path to reach the mission goal. The problem is, you can't really see too far in the distance because the clouds of dust, or poor draw distance, take a pick. Instead of planning your routes out from sight, you're going to be relying on following marker scribbles on a map. Even though the game suggests an open world, you'll come to find that most roads lead to the dark abyss. On occasion, you'll need to use a grappling hook to swing to a platform. This works most of the time. Some areas of the city are filled with thick plumes of dust, so Adam has to climb up to higher ground to seek purer air. In some cases, you'll be required to slide down an incline filled with obstacles to reach the platform at the bottom. This was one of the more frustrating segments for me because it was difficult to tell what I needed to land on.
War never changes.
You aren't alone in the world of I Am Alive. Occasionally you'll run into other survivors. Sometimes the survivors are in need of supplies, which you can trade for an extra life and stories about the disaster.
Getting worse with every breath. That's all I needed. Just enough to get me out of here when this damn dust storm's over. You want to know more about the event? After struggling with the earthquakes for several days, we were soon faced with a new threat. That thick plume of dust and burning ash just sort of came down on us like a tidal wave. No one could breathe out there. Everyone had to stay inside the shelters, like this mall, with supplies shrinking slowly. There was nothing else we could do for weeks. The alternative meant going outside. No one who went out ever came back.
You'll also encounter hostile survivors. This is where the combat system comes into play. Often you'll encounter a gang that wants to rob you of all of your supplies. You don't have the option of handing them over, but instead, all your options rely on murder as your escape plan. Since you're in an environment where ammo is scarce, you'll have to rely on bluffing your enemy into surrendering. or dying. The AI for these encounters seems a bit random. The AI's pathfinding only allows for enemy characters to rush you. They never run away, they never hide, they just wait for you to kill them, shoot them, or drop the weapon so they can ambush you. Sometimes you can get by with pointing your gun at the gang and forcing them to fall off a cliff or kicking them into a fire. Other times you'll get shot for raising your gun, so you have to wait until the gang member puts a machete to your neck, kill him, and then quick draw to kill the remaining members. Running away is never an option because your enemies will pursue you and kill you. You have to walk them to a death zone or perform a QTE to kill them. However, you cannot do a struggle kill QTE if another enemy is present, or you will die. It's a sloppy mess and restricts the player to reach the goal in a linear method. Stealth is not an option in this game. Enemies are placed in front of goal zones, so confrontation is forced upon the player. There aren't any chest-high walls, and your crouch walk doesn't silence your steps. When I acquired the bow and arrow, I assumed that stealth would finally be a focus. It wasn't. You may be able to pick off an enemy from afar, but it will alert all nearby enemies. Unlike The Last of Us, when you shoot an arrow, it won't break, and you can retrieve it over and over again, essentially making it an unlimited resource of arrows, so long as you can retrieve the arrow. This contradicts the conserve all your resources mechanic. The intimidation battle system is not unique to I Am Alive. The Reservoir Dogs video game did it first, and while it wasn't perfect as well, it made sense within the game world and functioned as it should.
Drop this and you let him go, right? Ah! Oh! Yeah. Ah! He's insane. Hey!
Learn to duck, moron.
Back to the story. So Adam makes it back to his family's apartment in Haventon, and not surprisingly, no one is home. He finds a letter from his wife stating that she and her daughter sought help from the military. So he leaves his home only to see a strange girl with dark hair that resembles his daughter.
Cheryl?
He gives chase, but she
Cheryl?
won't stop for him. He encounters a gang, murders the gang, and somehow convinces the little girl that he's a nice dude. The girl's name is May, and she's asthmatic. Because of her condition, Adam cannot traverse into dusty areas with her. Adam wears May like a backpack, and her weight doesn't seem to slow him down at all. For some reason, it just seems like Adam gives up on his quest on finding his family at this point, and he puts all of his focus on helping out May and her crippled friend Henry. Without spoiling the rest of the game, if you're still one of those few people interested in playing, the whole Adam reuniting with his family arc isn't ever resolved, but it's left ambiguous for a potential sequel. Well, I personally believe Adam stopped caring about his family the moment he decided to scale the Sears Tower to retrieve asthma medicine for a complete stranger's daughter. Let's face it, I Am Alive sold me purely on trailer hype, or as I like to call it, the Dead Island effect. There's nothing that I can think of that makes I Am Alive anything less than a poor imitation of greater games before it. If this was released in 2009, maybe it would have been remembered as an interesting idea, but unfortunately, any shot I Am Alive had at being remembered as a post-apocalyptic survival adventure would be greatly overshadowed by The Last of Us that following summer. So, what section does I Am Alive belong in the annals of gaming history? I'll let my ice cream fill you in this time.